We are joined with the one and only Scott Ritter, man of the hour. Happy New Year, Scott. How you doing this morning, man? You doing all right?
I'm doing okay, thanks. Yourself? Happy New Year to you too.
All right, let's get this break first. There we are. Yeah, I'm doing good, man, and I'm happy to join you. Scott Ritter is a former UN weapons inspector and weapons mass destruction whistleblower, which is one of the reasons that I really wanted you on today. Scott, I have about three questions, if I can get them in. The first one, was a nuke dropped in Syria? And the reason why I asked this is because there were certain researchers who were pointing out seismic activity and an increase in radioactive activity at the same time Israel just so happened to drop that weapon in Syria. It was a terrifying explosion associated with that weapon. You would know. You're the man who investigated this stuff for a living. Give me your verdict.
The answer is no. No, a nuclear weapon wasn't used at all. First of all, if you understood anything about Israel's nuclear weapons program and their policy, and its relationship with the United States, it would be an act of suicide for Israel to use a nuclear weapon, because it would confront the United States with the fact that Israel is a nuclear power publicly. And the United States would have to take certain legal measures towards Israel. This is why back in the late 1960s, Richard M. Nixon and Golda Meir worked out this whole notion of, deniability. And there are measures that Israel has agreed to take that would lead up to a decision to reveal publicly its nuclear weapons capability. None of those measures were taken. So in order to accept this, you just have to accept the fact that Israel, out of the blue, for no reason, decided to drop a nuclear weapon. Why would Israel use a nuclear weapon on a target in Syria? Why? There's no reason, none whatsoever. It's not an existential threat. They were eliminating what was, by every admission, an underground ammunition storage facility. The reason why you saw such a big explosion was that all the ammunition went up at one time, a giant explosion. But it's not a nuclear explosion. So first of all, just from the logical perspective, no. Second of all, we have sensors all over the place that are designed to detect, the use of a nuclear weapon. None of those sensors were activated. This wasn't a nuclear weapon. The radiation that's being detected is not the kind that you would expect to see with the use of a nuclear weapon. The seismic activity, I know there's people out there saying that that it showed certain characteristics, etc. It
Right.
showed the characteristics of an ammunition dump being blown up. There was no nuclear explosion. That would have been detected by satellites that are designed to detect just that. And the radiation is unique to a nuclear explosion. In short, the answer is not just no, but excuse my language, hell no.
Hell no.
It's a ridiculous assertion. It makes no sense. It passes no logic. It's just put out there. Look, I'm as anti-Israel as as one can be. I don't support their policies, etc. But I'm also somebody who's fact-based. And the facts just don't align on this one. I don't mean any disrespect for the people who have put out, their analysis of this, but no, the nuclear weapon was not used by Israel against a target in Syria.
Fair enough. I accept that. I mean, you would know better than I would. I think the reason why people will come to that assessment is not so much that they hate Israel. I think up to this point, they've acted with impunity. And any and everything that they've done up to this point, the U.S. has effectively backed or co-signed. For example, if you look at Blinken, if you look at Kirby, Sullivan, all of these people have basically said, nothing to see here, folks, is no genocide. And even when the U.S. puts out their own statements about starvation, the U.S. tamps it down. Hell, we just got the report that the BBC was literally changing or softening their reporting in order to shape it in order to not make Israel look bad. And so, in a world like that, where reality is fundamentally denied, then yeah, people may come to certain assessments based on their own, let's say, expertise that may not necessarily be up to snuff. That, yeah, this may happen, and no, there won't be consequences for it when it does happen. But I take your point. I do take your point, that this wasn't necessarily a nuke. This was just an explosion based on the bombs on the ground that they were blowing up. Fair enough. The other question that I wanted to get to.
Let me just throw in one last thing on that.
Please do.
At a time when, Israel has indicated the United States that Iran's nuclear program is of an existential nature to Israel, and that they want that program eliminated. The last thing Israel would do when the United States appears to be focused on, with the incoming Trump administration, showing that it's ready to enter into negotiations with Iran, who appears to be ready to enter into the same negotiations to bring the Iranian nuclear program within parameters acceptable by both Israel and the United States. The last thing Israel would do is use a nuclear weapon that would legitimize an Iranian nuclear weapons program.
I see.
So there's just so many logical things out there. When people start throwing data out there, I've seen radiation spikes and all this stuff. All I have in front of me is a piece of paper. What I'd really like to do is have the actual data itself, to see the sensors and all this kind of stuff. And then, because I am not, and I'll just repeat this, I am not a nuclear, physicist. You are not looking at a nuclear scientist here. This is a Marine. But the thing that made me effective when I was in the United Nations is that I had the ability to reach out and touch the best people in the world, the genuine rocket scientists, nuclear weapons designers, and all this kind of stuff, and bring them in and say, hey, here's the data. What does it mean? And they would look at it and tell me what it means. I would like to be able to do that, but I'm not in a position to do that as a private citizen. So even though I come at this with a very strong assertion, I haven't run the numbers. I haven't seen the original data, and so I don't want to denigrate those people who have done the work. But I'm just saying, from a logic standpoint, and from the things that should have been triggered, there are things that should have happened had Israel done this, things that would have, the detection capabilities that would have, sent alarm bells ringing, and none of those went off. What we're getting is an indirect analysis of this by peripheral observers, not the principles. There's the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty has a series of primary and auxiliary seismic stations that are designed to detect nuclear explosions. None of these were triggered. There's radiation detection systems throughout the region. None of these were triggered. There's overhead detection capabilities. None of these were triggered. And so I'd like to see the data, and then what I'd really like to do is take that data and put it before, the genuine experts and say, hey, tell me what this means. Tell me, what this means. So I'm just, what I'm trying to do is make sure your audience knows that, that I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. I'm not pretending to be, the guy that can look at, nucleoid detection and read meaning into it. I'm an outside observer that has some background in this. And what I would have expected to happen hasn't happened had a nuclear weapons test been done. It doesn't pass any of the logic as to why Israel would use a nuclear weapon. But out of respect for the people that have written these papers, I would say that before I make an absolute definitive analysis, those numbers should be, the data that they have should be run through expert eyes for final confirmation of what I'm saying. Or if somebody's saying, "Nah, Scott, you might be wrong here. There's a little glitch here," then you have to relook at it, because an argument could be made that Israel did a demonstration. One of the things that they talk about with Golda Meir is a demonstration of capability. that's designed to deter whatever activity that Israel doesn't want to happen. And, did Israel demonstrate a capability to both the United States and Iran in an effort to push them towards? I'm just brainstorming here. This is all extreme. On the extreme, it doesn't make sense for Israel to have done that. But these are counter arguments that people could put out there to my assessment. So again, what I'm trying to emphasize is that I'm a guy looking at it from a desk in Del Mar, New York, thousands of miles removed from the issue. And even though I'm confident in my assessment, I don't want people to think that that I have the bat phone that I can pick up and call somebody and get the definitive answer.
No, man, I appreciate it. I mean, look, your expertise, don't undercut yourself in this. Your expertise, you did this for a living as opposed to us who are looking at it from below. So no, I appreciate your assessment on this.